Most, if not all of you who are lending me your ears today are familiar with Apple, the computer company, right? Some of you may like what the company offers, and some of you might not. In modern times, they've consistently performed well in sales, from iPods to MacBooks, and from iPhones to iPads. And while I'm not here to sell you anything, what I have to offer today will be of interest to those of you who enjoy Apple's products, and perhaps to those of you who are considering purchasing one in particular. Apple's newest product release, the iPhone 4, while selling well, seems to have come under some scrutiny. As mentioned, Apple's iPhone has consistently been a popular product ever since its first release, and the iPhone 4 is no exception. However, after experiencing complaints from customers about signal quality, the way Apple has handled this customer service issue is questionable in quality. My name is Daniel Goodman, and I'm going to explain the problems consumers have been having with the iPhone 4 and how Apple has attempted to address the issue thus far. I'm then going to propose a solution from a customer's point of view that would bring about greater customer satisfaction and help Apple's reputation in terms of customer service. The problem started when customers who bought the iPhone 4 shortly after it was released started experiencing signal troubles if their hand was covering a certain part of the antenna, which is exposed on the outside of the phone. This was from a story in the Victoria Advocate. According to NPR, Consumer Reports had recommended against purchasing the iPhone 4, and they blamed it on the exposed antenna placement. Some think that the reaction to this has been blown out of proportion. Steve Jobs, the CEO of Apple, according to the Victoria Advocate, he said that it's been blown so far out of proportion that it's incredible. Another man, Spencer Webb, he's the CEO of AntennaSys, an antenna manufacturer for cell phones. According to USA Today, he said that any device that uses an antenna that gets covered by a human hand is going to have an issue. Apple's initial response was to blame the customers for holding the phone incorrectly. Steve Jobs, according to the San Jose Mercury News, said quote, just avoid holding it in that way. Apple's second response to this was to offer a limited number of rubber phone cases to affected customers to prevent touching the antenna. Again, according to the Victoria Advocate. Apple said they'd still offer a refund if the customers weren't satisfied. Steve Jobs said, according to CNN Saturday Morning News, that for those who are still unhappy with the product, he said, quote, for those who are still unhappy, we're going to give them a full refund. And that's everything we can do to try to make every customer happy. So Apple's response has been pretty lackluster in customer service quality, and this is really regardless of whatever kind of media attention this matter has received. It's received quite a lot, but even if it didn't, the point still remains. Apple needs to do a better job. There are reports, including one from the San Jose Mercury News, that have spoken of a potential recall, recalling all these iPhone 4s and trying to fix them. The problem with that is that's impractical because if the antenna is exposed on the outside, this would bring about the need to do a physical redesign of the phone. This problem seems to be limited to a certain degree because the demand for the phone is still pretty big, and it's still very popular regardless of these signal troubles. In another article from the Victoria Advocate, they said that despite all these reports, the iPhone 4 continued to sell strong and fast, with over 3 million units sold to date. So even though it's a limited problem, the best solution would be if Apple would develop an improved version of the iPhone 4 that A, address the antenna flaw with it being exposed on the outside, address the flaw so it minimizes how the human hand can contact the antenna, maybe mask it with the external casing of the phone, and also in this redesign for the improved version of the phone, this would not require the customer to use any external covers or anything like that, such as what Apple is offering now. In this improved version, Apple could add additional features to the improved iPhone 4, and they could sell this improved version normally to new customers who hadn't purchased an iPhone before or whatnot. And for customers who have already purchased an iPhone 4, purchased the initial one, Apple could offer a free exchange for these existing customers who can demonstrate that their original iPhone 4 is having this signal problem. The solution would fit Apple well because for the costs that they would suffer from having to do all these free exchanges, they'd be able to recoup these costs because they would also be selling this phone to other new customers who hadn't bought an iPhone yet, as mentioned, or maybe they're satisfied with their original iPhone 4, but as mentioned earlier, if Apple added even more features on the improved version of the iPhone 4, then there could also be some customers who may want to buy the new iPhone 4 anyway, even if they're not having a problem with the original one. Comparing this to a recall or a redesign, as was mentioned as a possibility in San Jose Mercury News, making it so they can still sell this improved version, this would limit the ultimate cost to Apple. This would offset that cost because of the profits they would gain from sales, and it would also improve customer satisfaction by limiting the inconvenience to the customers who had already bought the phone, because all they have to do is go into an Apple store and exchange the phone. What would also please these customers would be any features that were on the improved iPhone 4. They could enjoy these once they exchange the phone, and this would very likely alleviate any pent-up frustration that they might have had prior to the exchange. So we've covered what the most basic problem is with the iPhone 4, and we've discussed a most practical solution for Apple to employ. Some of you may be thinking, what does this have to do with me? Whether I have one or not, I'm just one customer. Well, you're right. You're just one customer. But remember a basic tenet of any business. Those who don't listen to their customers are not going to stay in business. You're not the only one who will ever see this video, and you have a voice. If you want Apple to make this right, send this to your friends and talk about it. Band together, the more the merrier. If you think about it, the solution I propose is the most practical option that takes care of both Apple and you, Apple's customers. If you join together with a unified demand, the company would be foolish not to listen. After all, as noted in the Victoria Advocate article about Apple's news conference over this, Steve Jobs said it himself. He just wants to make sure you're happy. So respond. Tell him exactly how to do it.